This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the generative AI assistant that can securely understand your business data, summarize results, and streamline tasks. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
When it comes to towing, seeing is believing. That's why Chevy Truck's advanced camera technology offers up to 8 available cameras for 14 unique views, so you can focus on the view that really matters. Chevrolet, together let's drive. Learn more about Chevy Trucks at Chevy.com. Safety or driver assistance features are no substitute for the driver's responsibility to operate the vehicle in a safe manner. Read the vehicle owner's manual for important feature limitations and information.
With Uber Reserve, you can book your Uber ride in advance, 90 days in advance. Perfect for all you forward thinkers and planning gurus. Reserve your Uber ride up to 90 days in advance. Uber Reserve. See Uber app for details.
Another episode of Keeping Current with Kansas City. This is Sad Bell from KC Soccer Journal. With me, Daniel Sperry from the KC Star. We are in the off season and we do not get to talk as much, or we aren't forced to talk as much as we are during the season. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. We have not done very well with the Keeping Current moniker. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is funny. This podcast, like, episode that we are recording tonight, as of Monday, December 16th, was discussed on December 10th, and then life got in the way for like 4 or 5 days, and it just kept on tumbling down the road. And we finally said, okay, we gotta do this.
Look, dude, you have a family. I have a family. I have been to 4 different performances over the last 8 days between my wife and daughter. Well, actually, mostly my daughter. My wife kind of jumped in on one of them. But anyway, it has been busy. And even tonight, I'm coming back late from a meeting. So we were a little bit later than we wanted to be. But
it's okay.
It's okay. We're both here. We have a roster to talk about that we have not got to talk about. And honestly, there's a point where we said, oh, we could do it tonight. Or, you know what? There's a little free agent signing time out here. Let's just see if something happens.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got to be cognizant of the window. Right now, the window that is open will go for any and all transactions, goes until the 20th. There is a full moratorium for 7 days, from the 20th to the 27th.
Why is that?
Then because of Christmas.
Okay. I was just making sure. That's my thought.
I'm like, the vibe that I got when asking about that moratorium was simply because, like, people need time off, and like, we're going to do this big moratorium on announcements, and moves and stuff like that, because it's the holidays. And thank you, as reporters who don't want to have to work on a holiday because of a team decided to make a trade and announce it on Christmas Eve, while I'm trying to make Christmas cookies with my mother and daughter, or my mother, my daughter, and my sister, and keep up our family traditions and stuff like that. I don't want to have to be sitting on the couch with a laptop and a phone out talking to people trying to get the down low on what happened. So,
you know, more importantly, though, I'm quite honestly, it's not about you, it's not about me, it's about the players, right? So let's not say, hey, by the way, we want to trade you someplace.
I only do this for me, Thad. I'm just kidding.
That's what some people may say.
Oh, the sarcasm. Anyways, but yes, no, overall, I'm happy that the moratorium exists,
Yes.
for everybody. It will be a nice period of not having to worry about crap.
Totally agree. All right. When we last got together, when we last talked in person, at least, the Kansas City Current had announced their end of season roster moves. Pretty much, we already knew everything that was going on, more or less. I'm just going to run down the roster real quick. Right now, currently under contract to the KC Current is 0 keepers. There is 7 defenders: Alana Cook, Haley Mace, Gabrielle Robinson, Izzy Rodriguez, Kayla Sharples, Reagan Steiglitter, Ellie Wheeler. Steiglitter, Reagan, I'm just going to say Reagan, was one that we've known about but hadn't been announced previously. It was one of those that kind of leaked out, but we knew it. Midfielders: Dabinia, Vanessa, Bailey, Claire, Jericho, and Lowe. Forwards: Timwa, Michelle, Alex, Nichelle, Bia, who is one of those that we kind of found out but now is official, and the 18-year-old Nigerian forward Obiemi. Do you know how to say it?
I'm gonna just say it looks like Ajakaye, or Ajakai. I'm not 100% sure.
Yeah, me either.
Sorry.
So I want to be respectful. I just am terrible with names. If anybody who's listened to this will know. Currently on loan to USL Super League team. Is it the Ascent?
Carolina Ascent.
Yes. And we don't know a whole lot about her, but I plan on trying to watch some games and see if she gets much time.
Yeah.
All right. So that is 12, 19 players.
Yep.
No keepers. Let's just start from the back. I'm pretty sure they're talking to Almuth, Schultz, and perhaps AD French.
Yeah.
Have you got any vibe?
Yeah, I mean the vibe for me is that it's going to be like if Almuth plays in the NWSL again, it will be with the Kansas City Current. That is everything that the inkling things that I've been told just seems to be that way. I would be really surprised if she played in the league with another team. I from the way that this club kind of embrace her, coming off of, a difficult jump back into things in Germany, but also like having to bring 3 children on the road with her, coming across overseas in the middle of a season. Like there's a lot of moving parts, and I think that the club kind of showed that, that like they're willing to go the extra mile for players. I mean, I think they've been doing a really good job of that this year, and kind of the player care aspect of things off the field. Much better so in recent than in a couple of years past. So I think this is a place that if you want to come back, then this is where it is. I think she talked a lot about how the environment reminded her of playing at Wolfsburg. Just a very high level, high competitive, only think about being the best at all times kind of environment. And I think that kind of shows. So, but does another team look at the numbers that she put up in a short time in this league, in Germany? Do they look at her and say, okay, we really need goalkeeper help. We'd love for you to come back. And is it closer to home for her? Is it a better situation? All those kinds of things, I think are all in the air. But I think if she comes back, like the numbers there, both advanced numbers and regular numbers, that she's probably one of the top 3 goalkeepers in this league if she stays full time here in Kansas City. So I think it's almost more so that it feels like that the ball is in Schultz's court. But I think the Current are seeking to add a goalkeeper that puts them into top 3 in the league in that position, at least. And so if it's not Almuth, then I wouldn't be surprised if there's some pretty well-known names from around the world, goalkeeping wise, that might be coming this way. They could also pull a trade for a player like poor Jane Campbell, who is stuck in Houston. In the misery there is a goalkeeper who is very good with her feet. So there's a very good shot stopper as well. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that could, I'm not saying they're going to go trade for Jane Campbell. I've never heard that. Let's take it with a grain of salt.
That was speculation that it would be a player like that, not that it would be specifically her.
Yeah, like you're looking to add a player in that realm that's going to break that way. There's a couple of goalkeepers in Manchester that might want to not be playing for Mark Skinner anymore. Wouldn't blame them. So come come back to come back to the United States, Fallon Joyce, or come check out the States. Mary
Yeah.
Earps, like like again, these are all like with it. This is the type of goalkeeper that I think the club's looking for, and Almuth puts them in that spot if she wants to come back, and if not, then we'll see what they do. But
That is the number one spot. They have to have a player,
mhm,
period. They need absolutely two.
mhm.
You can always get a third one out of the college ranks. I was gonna say about to say the draft, but obviously the draft doesn't
Even
exist anymore.
but even then, like they could go. I think Jordan Silkowitz had her contract declined with Bay FC. Like if you really liked her and wanted to bring her back, guess what? Welcome back, Jordan Silkowitz, the third goalkeeper. Like
Yeah.
those are all realities, like or like possible realities. So the third goalkeeper thing is like the least big problem to figure out on the roster, but getting a number one is the serious thing. And so that'll be really interesting how that shakes out. And to me, that's their top prior. That should be their top priority this offseason, is getting an elite number one, whether it's retaining Schultz or getting someone from somewhere else.
A couple of the names that I did not mention in that when I was running through there is players that have left
Hmm.
like Hilda has been returned from loan.
Hmm.
Stina Balaseger had her option declined,
Hmm.
and Sophie Braun is no
Hmm.
longer with the team.
Yep.
Other names that are not currently on the roster: Elizabeth Ball, Kristen Hamilton,
Mallory Weber.
Mallory Weber. Um, sorry, Mal, I don't expect you back. Um, I I'm just kind of getting around is we know that Ball can still play. We know that Hamilton can still put in some minutes, even though she didn't see a lot of them this year.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shocked to see them back. What would you think?
Yeah, I mean, they seem to me like the kind of players that like they've got significant roots here, and I'd be surprised if they left. And I'd be curious to see, if how the club gets creative to kind of keep them around. I think there's um, not only the roots aspect, but like both of them are very big pieces to the locker room. Uh, and I think in personalities and people that are cultural fits just as much as they can provide. We've seen Elizabeth Ball play center back. We've seen her play right back. She can play in a back three. She can, there's a lot of different things that she can do. She's a good player. And having a versatile player like that is one that you want to keep around. And Hammy is a poacher. She's a great goal scorer.
Yep.
And she is a tireless worker off the ball as well. When she's healthy and fully flying, that's a player that you want for spot starts or for other things. There's a lot of really good players that pushed their way ahead of her this year. And she had some of her own injuries that she had to deal with at times too. So I just think I don't think the book is closed on either of their times in Kansas City yet. And I expect them back in some way, shape, or form. I just wouldn't be surprised if like we don't hear about it until like either closer to like preseason camp breaking or
Yes.
something like that, like something later on the other side of the new
Yeah.
year. Um,
Yeah. I kind of feel like there's something a little bit odd there because let me just run down the defenders real quick. Like I said, it was Cook,
mhm,
Mace, Robinson, Rodriguez, Sharples, Steigleder, and Wheeler. And I asked Vlaco in the press conference about, are you looking for a third center back? Because we know Gabby may not be ready at the beginning of the season, right? I think you've heard probably maybe a month into the season or something like that.
mhm.
And he kind of is like, well, we got Ball. And I'm like, okay. I thought maybe I'd misread the press release. I thought I'd misread something, but so I'm going to go out on a limb and say he assumes that she's going to be back for next year at some point.
Mhm.
Don't know what the deal is. I will continue to try to dig on that at some point, but I would be very surprised if she's not back next season. I still think they could probably use another depth on defense, but otherwise,
Mhm.
pretty good.
Yeah, and I think there's room to even with some of the other as I look at this roster right now, there is one, two, three, four. Oh, never mind. I didn't delete some of the ones who are not officially under contract yet. So let me do my math another day.
Hey, it's Emma Chamberlain. I designed these new glasses for Warby Parker, and I basically can't take them off. Like, I'm showering in them and sleeping in them. They're just that good. Go see them all at warbyparker.com. And you know what? Have a good day too. Okay? All right? Bye.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's a lot to be thankful for this season. For one, I'm thankful you can get NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV right now for only $209. It's exactly what you need as we head right into the playoffs. You can invite your friends over. Maybe you have a multi-view. You could have 4 different games, one for you, one each for the 3 other friends you invite. You can change the games around as soon as the outcome becomes pretty certain. Dump that game, put in another one. I've become the multi-view master. The moment the one of the games is losing steam, I'm ready to move right in and move it for another one. Build your own multi-view. One of my favorite words. Thank yourself this holiday season. Get NFL Sunday Ticket for the rest of the NFL regular season for just $209. Sign up now at youtube.com/BS. Terms and embargoes apply. Device and content restrictions apply. No cancellations.
We know you have a lot on your holiday to-do list. And at the UPS Store, we're here to help with our pack and ship guarantee. Your gifts will arrive intact or you'll be reimbursed. Got holiday cards to print? We're also the premier printing store. We've got everything you need for every way you holiday. Visit the upsstore.com/guarantee for full details. Most locations are independently owned. Product services, prices, and hours of operation may vary. See Center for details. The UPS Store. Be unstoppable. Come into your local store today.
So, you want to be a marketer. It's easy. You just have to score a ton of leads and figure out a way to turn them all into customers. Plus, manage a dozen channels, write a million blogs, and launch 100 campaigns all at once. When that's done, simply make your socials go viral and bring in record profits. No sweat. Okay, fine. It's a lot of sweat. But with HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools, launching benchmark-breaking campaigns is easier than ever. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
Obviously, there are going to be 3 goalkeepers, but there's still 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spots open on this roster in total, not including goalkeepers. So 2 of those are going to get filled back at some point with Gabrielle Robinson and Alex Pfeiffer coming back off of SEI. And I'm talking about an active 26-player roster that you start the season with, kind of a thing. We know last year they went into camp with like 30-something players. It happens. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that happens again. You have room for college sign type of players in some of the depth spots, especially in the midfield. You have and in the back line, I think, wouldn't be surprised to see like another college signed center back alongside E-ball coming back. You run with kind of 5-ish center backs there. That would kind of seem like it would make sense. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a college signed third goalkeeper as well. But like in the mid, there's 2 spots that I think interest me. Is there's really off of what was already there this offseason is a midfield spot and an attacking spot. Obviously, like I said, I think Alex Pfeiffer will eventually get one of those attacking spots back. Actually, technically 2 attacking spots here. Until Kristen Hamilton signs. So, I thought it was interesting, kind of asked like what are you looking for player wise? And I think Vlaco kind of laid out what he feels that the team needs. The team needs someone to replace the destroyer Desi role. Not necessarily in being the destroyer. It seems like that mantle has been passed to Michelle Cooper. However, they need someone in the midfield that can come in and close out games. That was verbatim what we were told. They want someone with kind of that defensive edge, that defensive bite that they can bring in to help close out games. I think that probably suits for center back too, which is a role that E-ball filled multiple times this year, coming off the bench to close out a game or be the spot start. The one thing I thought was really interesting is that they said that they needed more goals off the bench. And I thought that was kind of interesting because I do think there's with the forwards that they have, there's definitely goals off the bench when they're all healthy. But I thought that this quote here from Vlaco, I thought was interesting in that final press conference because he said, you know, he didn't realize that this team didn't need it, that this team needed it until they got to that game against Orlando, where they didn't really have much to bring off the bench, and change the game and do something a little bit different, and give a change up. You know, they're bringing midfielders and attackers off the bench, or midfielders and defenders off the bench, and not really attackers at that point. And that's what he said. You know, we never really needed that because in almost all the games we were ahead throughout the season, until the last game, we felt like, okay, we could use another forward. So I think, the specific thing he said was he needed more goals off the bench, someone that can come in the game and they know they can provide goals for them. So it'll be interesting to see. That's a veteran goal scorer out on the market type of a thing that I see that I'm like, okay, that's the kind of player that they're looking to go add, someone that can go get him a goal late. So it'll be interesting to see what they do. But this isn't a team that has a ton of like wide open needs, but they have a couple of very specific needs that could be filled very interestingly.
Well, obviously, if Pfeiffer is healthy, she definitely brings a potential goal scorer off the bench. Bia is healthy. You now don't have some other player that's starting, probably Nichelle Prince, for example. That's another goal scorer that can come off the bench. The Nigerian forward, we know that she can probably come off the bench. So they have at least some of that in the future. Everything is like it's always, man. If people are not healthy, you don't have those options, and he just didn't have enough options. I may have played some slightly different formations in that case, but that's what he had at the moment, so I don't blame him. In the midfield, like you said, they're looking for a destroyer, somebody to come in and close out games. But you also got to remember Claire Hutton will probably miss even more games over the next couple of years just because she is a rising national team player and will have opportunities to play in U20 World Cups again and things like that. So we may be missing her. I would not be surprised if Vlaco is looking at a couple of the U20, U18 players that are currently out there to bring in and sign because he will know those players.
Mm-hmm.
He's obviously done pretty well with Claire and Alex so far. So I would not be surprised. And then there's always, I don't know, again, just going to speculate that sometime in the next couple of years there might be a Mary Long on the team too. You never know.
Yep. And shouldn't be ruled out. She's a good player.
Yeah. She should definitely be in that mix for being a professional at this point, whether it's now or a couple of years from now. Other thoughts?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they navigate this first college signing free agency kind of a thing. I thought, I pointed out that in the past, draft picks have been players that they could, kind of cheaply fill the roster with in a way. There's cap limits and stuff like that to the contracts. And I think Vlaco did a good job of pointing out how the landscape has changed. Because, he was talking about how some of those top players out of college, now there's a bidding war for them. Multiple teams want them. So now it goes to the best bidder, the highest bidder, the team that can sell that to them. And I think that's the really intriguing part in all of this, to me at least, because how do the draft was a way that teams kind of really funneled in that college pipeline. Right. And does that pipeline start to die? More so than it maybe has in years past. Does it, and how do teams, how does it affect that? Okay, now you're signing a 21, 22-year-old player and you're having to spend, maybe instead of, 2% of the cap on them, you got to spend 5% of the cap on that player. How does that affect some of the other how does that affect your cap balance? How does it affect all of those kind of things and what you need out of, okay, maybe we have much left to spend on this roster spot and this player wants more than that. That kind of stuff. I'm not saying that that's bad. That's a bad thing for those players, and a bad thing for that to happen, but it changes the status quo that we have of how teams fill out some of those bottom end roster spots. It'll be interesting to see how teams do that, manage the cap. Um, you look at Gotham. Gotham goes in and signs all of those big free agents. They're losing this offseason. They're losing a ton of their really good bottom end contributors. I won't say bottom end contributors, but pretty good bottom end roster players that were very good contributors for them in their championship run, and when some of these national team players like Crystal Dunn are either holding out or for some reason, right?
Right.
She hasn't played in weeks. Or Rose Lavelle, always injured or sometimes with national team duty, right?
Yep.
I don't mean that like as a knock, but like she's going to miss time with an injury throughout a season. It's going to happen. She's going to miss time because she's with the national team. It's going to happen. And so Lynn Williams, same thing. So like when those players are out, now you've spent so much money on these, you can't retain the Delaney Sheehan. You can't retain some of these players that were phenomenal for them, and it really changes the outlay of things. So I'm really intrigued to see how this offseason truly does shake out, because there's actually surprisingly a lot of decent players up for grabs, but can you make that fit into your roster? And it might lead to, I don't know now with the way things went this season. I don't know if we'll actually get a top four as separated from everyone else as they were this year.
Well, you usually didn't get a top four separated as much as they were this year or in the past either.
Right.
But it's going to be.
I'm saying I don't see that being a trend necessarily. Like I think this might be a one-off because it's going to reset itself.
Well, again, we really don't know, because in leagues around the world where teams can just bring in any player they want as long as they can fit them under whatever roster they have, whatever cap they have. They don't have cap leagues for the most part, but you're now going to have to that balance of bringing somebody in to fit them under the cap. But any player in college can say, "Hey, Kansas City, I want to come play there. I like the way you play. I like your stadium. I like your training facility. I like river balls, whatever," right? They can come here. They don't have to, they can't be forced to go somewhere.
Yeah.
So it's going to open that up. But then there's, Kansas City can't sign every college player. Orlando can't sign every college player, right? I mean, no team can sign all of them. So now they're going to be forced to, some of them will have to go play for Houston. God forbid, right? They're going to, because Houston will overpay them maybe to come there. It's going to be a very interesting experiment, not this year, but over the next 4 years, I will say, is it's going to try to shake out to where it's going to be. It's going to be a very interesting experiment in real time. And I don't know how, I wouldn't want to sit here and totally predict it, but I mean, I think the teams that have a stronger cap management, have a stronger attraction to these players, have a stronger, there will be players that will come to Kansas City or other places that are continuously successful. So yes, you're probably right. There won't be a four separated as much. However, if there is four teams that manage well and bring in players well and recruit those players well, maybe they will still be rising to the top.
Yeah.
So it will just be extremely interesting to see how this works out. And with the research that I know Vlaco used to do on college players, I'm pretty sure that him and Caitlin will still be very good at bringing in those talent.
Yeah, I agree.
And they won't be restricted by, I can't get them because of the draft pick. All right. Like I've said, we don't really expect any news probably till, I don't know, I'll say January at this point, because it's almost the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I doubt that they try to slip one in or under the next 3-4 days. So I think this will probably be our last pod for the current till next year.
Till next year. One other thing we didn't kind of touch on that got brought out in the press conference was the addition of Ryan Dell to the current front office.
Yep.
Here's the thing. A team ops hiring, like his role is specifically going to be what Caitlin Carducci was doing, and it's team operations, everything from like it's going to be everything it from like player travel and player care to like there is a significant amount that he will do um in that in kind of team management. Is it a GM role? No, because he was the GM in Louisville. However, having someone come into the room, into the think tank that has past GM experience and player knowledge, and I will say, did a very good job in acquiring players to Racing Louisville this year, either through the draft. I thought the last trade that they made was really bad in getting rid of Riley Turner. Um, and sending her Rylan Turner, sorry, sending her up to Portland. Like she was good for them. There were some good players that they had that they kind of sent away.
Yeah, sometimes
later in the year.
Sometimes that's not by choice, though.
True.
So,
And they're but like the acquisition of Taylor Flint, the ability like trade or drafting Turner the way that they hit on some draft picks this year too. So I just think like it is interesting to have a GM level like experienced guy come into the room that's going to be like interact very closely in that front office with Carducci and Vlaco. Like his specific purview will be certain things, but he has the expertise that I won't be shocked if he's part of the think tank on certain things. So, interesting hire that Carducci kind of let out there. My thought was it kind of important to note. It's one thing hiring a team ops person, it's another thing hiring another team's GM to be your ops person. That's that's kind of flexing what you have to offer if you're the current.
true. And I want to go back to something you said earlier too. I don't think I finished touching on where my train of thought was going, but you mentioned about how it will some of this new changes. How will that affect the college pipeline? I think that's going to be a really big question also because we see the college pipeline dying on the men's side because of academy teams and stuff like that. I think if the NWSL can get real academy teams and 2 teams going, that will really diminish that college pipeline also.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that thought back out there. Sorry for kind of jumping back, but I wanted to make sure I said that.
Good thoughts.
All right, man. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate the time as always, sir.
I appreciate anybody and everybody who has listened this year, and we hope to continue to do this for the foreseeable future and hopefully add more content as we go. So thank you, and we are out.